Hey guys, it's Dr. Michael Ming. Welcome to another episode of Bootstrap MD. If you have thought about getting coached or looked into physician coaching, I'm sure you're familiar with the person that I have on the call, almost synonymous with the word physician coaching. And I recently contacted her. We both participated in the virtual summit that Dr. Peter Kim was in, and I'm sure I've talked all about it. And one doctor really resonated with me just in terms of her enthusiasm and her posts and kind of telling it like it is. And I said, I got to actually meet her, and I couldn't do that physically, but virtually at least. And she happens to be in my hometown here in San Diego. So, Sunny, I want to give you a proper introduction, and we're going to get started. She's a clinical professor at the Department of Family Medicine and Public Health at UC San Diego, my undergrad alma mater. You most likely heard of her because she's the founder of Empowering Women Physicians. She's got a podcast, coaching, retreats, Facebook group. She also spends the last 15 years of her academic career at UCSD as a co-medical director at UCSD student-run free clinic project, which I'm sure is rewarding. We'll talk about that. And the last 10 years as a community director, which is responsible for the personal and professional development of medical students, which is very exciting, but I'm sure it can be very challenging at times. She's been featured in multiple documentaries on medical student and physician wellness. She's got a coaching program where she focuses on helping doctors stop sacrificing themselves for others and start to finally enjoy the life they work so hard to create. Those are words that really resonate with me. Dr. Sunny Smith, thank you for joining me on this program today.
That was like the world's best introduction. You are the best introducer. Can I just hire you to come around with me and you just hang around with me?
Dr. Peter Kim calls me his hype man. I said, yeah, you know what? Whatever you can do, I want to spot. Well, I just enjoy spotlighting other doctors doing this. You can probably tell I'm a little bit older than you, but I've been doing this for like the last 10 or 15 years, where just to talk about doctors doing other things outside of prescribing medicine was like, that was blasphemous at times. So it is so refreshing to be around other doctors who kind of like understand that, medicine isn't the end all be all, of our life. We have challenges, of course. We have other experiences we want to pursue, and that's why I wanted you to bring you on to the call today.
Yeah, I think that it's that word that you use, as a coach, I always notice people's language, and the blasphemous is so like right on, and you said 10 to 15 years ago, it really felt blasphemous. But the thing is, most physicians, like you're in a space where it's totally normal to talk about this, right? And we were just in this Leverage and Growth Summit where there was 10,000 people who it was totally normal to talk about this. But in your day-to-day life, like when I'm at my university, this is not something people talk about. It is still kind of blasphemous, like what we're doing, and like, what are you thinking? Why are you doing that? So I think it does still have a little bit of that for a lot of people. And I think physicians who want to become an entrepreneur, I think that's the big thing.
Yeah. And I want to talk about that, how you kind of juggle that, the professional Dr. Sunny Smith with your coaching aspect. But I want to talk about this. I got a very important question for you. So it kind of tells you where this podcast is going to go. So I want to know, Dr. Smith, which version of the song Sunny do you like? Do you like the old 60s version or the more 70s? Actually, Billie Eilish just came out, her version of Sunny. Or you can
No. Billie Eilish has a Sunny?
Yeah, she has
the same one? Is it a remake?
Yeah. She did one. She did it. Well, it's the old version. So it's a remake, but she did one. They did like a podcast recently for the pandemic, the One World podcast, and she sang like Sunny.
You're kidding me. Yeah. This is like the best day of my life. Not only did I get the best introduction ever, I literally just came on a podcast and learned but Billie Eilish is singing about me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm sure she's singing about you personally. I'm not too sure about it.
Well, let me tell you a funny story. So, of course, I love the old one. I don't know the new one. So Sunny, no, no,
Yes.
no, no. Yeah.
You
So,
probably hit it though, I would think.
so I actually went, some of my med students a handful of years ago were in this band, a beautiful band. And I went to go watch them perform and they were doing this amazing job. The couple ended up getting married later and, you know, they're off as attendings now. But the band started singing that song in the middle just for me. And everyone started looking around and we were like, oh my gosh, they're like, Dr. Smith, this one's for you. So like, that is so symbolic that you brought that up. I just love that so much.
Yeah, so you still love the song. It's funny because my assistant's name is Jenny, and there's this song in the 80s called 8675309.
Oh, are you kidding me?
Yes.
Like we don't know Jenny.
Well, she absolutely hates that song. And,
Yeah.
and so I was just curious.
No, I love Sunny. Most people, like most of like say med students and residents and young attendings, they've never heard that song.
Yeah. But my son doesn't even know what a CD is, you know. We don't record it, right?
But with Billie Eilish, and honestly, it's going to make a comeback now.
We'll leave a link in the show notes.
Yes. I'm going to Google as soon as we're done. Okay.
So let's talk about it. So your family practice trade. You didn't go to medical school at UCSD. You went.
Yes, I did. I went to medical school at UCSD. It started in 1997.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, and I finished in 2001, and then I went away for residency. Yeah.
Gotcha. So how did you end up deciding, you know, one day I'm going to open up a whole brand on empowering women physicians? Was that in your personal statement for med school, or was that later in residency? Where did you?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. I put it in a personal statement. I was going to go rogue after 20 years.
Yes, right.
So you said one day. Of course, none of us come to it in one day because you do this talking to people all the time, right? There's always a journey. And so many of you who know me know a little bit about my journey. So I'll try to say it more briefly so that people don't have to listen to the whole thing. But basically, I mean, I've always been an advocate for sort of a couple of things. Social justice, ever since I went into medical school, because I started at the beginning. We started the free clinic in 1997 when I was a first year student. And so that really formed who I am as a human being. And so like advocacy, caring for others. I didn't know anything about social justice before then. Anyway, so there was that. And then the other thing that I really cared about is just kind of well-being, right? And like, you're really going to be okay. And so I would, you know, talk to students about that. And I would mostly, like, I showed up at the free clinic and then there were just, it's the most popular elective and then a core course as well. And so, you know, 90% of the students choose to come through there and then they get close to you and then they tell you all their stuff, right? And you get really close. And then after being there for a handful of years, then I was asked to be the formal advisor. So then I was their formal advisor, again, wellness, all this stuff. So I've been in that space for a long time. So in that realm, it's not like wellness is new to me, but how did it apply to me? I was always applying it, you know, I mean, some to my friends, but mostly for me, it was students, the generation beneath me now. And so I actually was in a bike accident in Tahiti. It was exactly 3 years ago. It was on Mother's Day. And I was coming down a mountain on a bicycle and I went over the handlebars and got knocked out and I broke my face and I broke my arms and I got POTS, positional orthostatic tachycardia syndrome, and had to sort of get, you know, transported back home for surgeries and all this. And so everything that I thought I knew about my life that was like so important I had to do, no, like if I don't write those letters of rec, no one's going to get into residency, right? Because I know them best. And no one else can do my charts and no one else can take my kid to school and no one else can this and that and the other. And all of a sudden it was like, speaking of like records and CDs, it's like the record scratch. It's like all that stuff you thought was so important and you had to do, I couldn't do anything because I both my arms were in full arm casts. So, and my face was all smashed up. So I couldn't eat, I couldn't drink, I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I couldn't feed myself. I couldn't stand. I certainly wasn't typing. And a lot of doctoring right now is typing, right? So I was out for months and it was not planned. And so I had a concussion and so I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't hold a book. And so I stumbled into podcasts. I'd never listened to a podcast. I'd never heard that there were podcasts. I had heard my med students say that they'd listened to lectures on them. So anyway, my husband put them in my ears, the like earbuds, because then he'd go to work and leave me for 8 hours all by myself, or a nurse would come take care of me. And through PMG, people were saying, what podcast do you like? What podcast do you like? And people said life coach school. And I was like, well, I definitely don't want to be a life coach. But all of these physician moms were like, no, it's really good. It's not really about becoming a life coach. It's just about how your thoughts and your perceptions of the world matter. And I was like, I could really use some thought work right now because I'm pretty pissed off I went down that mountain. Because if I could just take away that one moment, like everything would be golden and back to normal. So I always was like wishing I hadn't done it. So anyway, I listened over the course of those months. There were 200 and something episodes at that time. I listened to all of them. And then like at the end, she had a pitch. She was like, you know, as it got current, she was like, so I'm enrolling. And I was like, because I really changed over those 3 months. I changed the way I saw everything because everyone was so busy. All the doctors, all my best friends, like tortured souls, right? Mm-hmm. So busy, never happy. And I'm just looking at them. I'm like, they're busy, busy, busy. And I'm just still. It was such a contrast. I couldn't even like get up. So my stillness versus their busyness, I'm like, why are they choosing that life? And I didn't realize I was always choosing that life. But once I was still, I was like, yeah, everything really is kind of a choice, isn't it? And so then when I went back to work, nothing really bothered me the same. Because I was just like, everything, because to my friends, they'd be like complaining about this, that, or the other. I'm like, did you wipe your bum today? Yeah, it's not really that bad of a day, is it? You know, did you, whatever, all the normal things, like you woke up, yeah, and you walked and you fed yourself and you went outside. It's pretty good. Because if you can get up and go outside of your house, whether it's in a wheelchair or on your own 2 feet, you can do anything you want. Like you don't actually have to go to that job 60 hours a week. You don't actually have to, like you really can choose. So anyway, I just never saw things the same. And then she offered to go to coach training. And so I did. And when I first got there, it was sort of that blasphemy moment, you know, all those blasphemy things. I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. I was like, I'm going to a conference, just going to take a week off. I took a week of vacation and said I was going to a conference. I got there. There were a few other doctors and I was so happy because I only knew of Katrina Ubel. She trained there and she was in the summit with us too. And she was like my only reason that I could tell my husband that like this was going to be okay. So, and then I wasn't insane because he thought I was pretty insane. This was never on my radar before. So yeah, I went there and there were a few other physicians in person there and we were all like, does anyone know you're here? What did you tell people back home? And so anyway, then while I was there, and this will be the end of the story, while I was there, you know, they teach you can create anything you want. We call that putting anything you want in the R line. It's the results line. You can create any results you want in your life. And so I was sitting on the patio or like a jacuzzi thing with another girl who ran retreats in Bora Bora. And I had no idea what I was going to do with my life coach training at all. I just knew it worked and I wanted it and I liked it. And I was like, oh my gosh, you really run retreats there? Because I had gone there to the Four Seasons for my 40th birthday. It was like the happiest week of my whole life. I was like, I could make that my life to do that and to bring other people there. And so I was like, that's it, R-line, done. And then I was like, I'm running one, here we go. And then so that's kind of, and then because I signed a contract to do that right away, and it's a big contract. They're very expensive. So then right away I was like, well, I got to be off and running. And so like as a physician entrepreneur, I have to say, like for those who are listening, most people aren't going to do that, right, at all. But what was interesting for me is that I had to perform. There was no option for failure. I think for a lot of physicians, it's like, oh, we have these 6-figure or multiple 6-figure cush jobs. Not cush, they're not cush at all, but you know, like the salary supports us. We don't need the entrepreneurship in the way that some other folks need their entrepreneurship. So they're
generally
like,
pay our mortgage, you know, we're some are sacrificing everything.
Yeah, so for some, it's a must. And for doctors, what I see sometimes is it's like, oh, that would be nice. It's getting kind of hard now. Okay, I'm done. And so for me, it was like, oh no, I signed this. We have to make this happen. And so I just wouldn't rest until I got enough people interested. So that's how I started.
Well, all right, we're going to take a quick break, but if you've been following me for some time, you know I'm a big believer in what I call the 3 types of income that every physician should have, the trifecta, as you will. You've got your active income, that's your doctor's salary. You've got your passion income. As an entrepreneur, you've got a business that you can believe in, that gets you excited. And then one of the most important components is that passive income. That's income that's bringing in money that's working for you while you sleep. And if you're like me, you get targeted by all these different financial schemes. We all know about it. And you don't really know what to believe and what not to. Well, these guys over at Money Insights, you'll definitely want to check out because I 100% believe in these guys. Christian and Rod over the gang over at Money Insights have got a really cool financial model that works perfectly for physicians. In fact, they almost work exclusively with physicians. If you want to find out more about them, go to bootstrapmd.com/money. That's bootstrapmd.com/money. They'll tell you all about it. You'll be watching a couple of videos that really kind of educate you, and it's no obligation when you're ready to talk to them. So go to bootstrapmd.com/money, find out more about it. I really can't say much more about it, but just let them know that Dr. Mike sent you, and I think you'll be pretty happy on the results that you're going to have with them. And it's one thing that I kind of try to teach to my kids is the gratitude. Is the, the air we breathe. Now we're realizing we're in the freedoms that we've had before, and it just makes everything else just seem so petty. I was listening to some comedian, I forgot who it even was, and it was the joke that like this guy, there's a businessman was on the plane and he was trying to, I don't know, do his stocks or something on the internet, and the stewardess tells him, you need to turn off your phone. And they're like, what? Life isn't fair and all this kind of stuff. It's like, the guy's like, you're in a plane. We're in the top of the air. You're communicating. Just have some gratitude. I know that you weren't able to buy that stock at that particular time or whatever, but like, dude, like, and that's what I try to teach my kids. I'm sure, you know, you're running a free clinic and you know, you realize that you're dealing with the folks who definitely are a lot of disadvantages and you know, things like that really kind of, you know, puts life in perspective. But I wanted to talk about your decision to actually go to that seminar. And you're kind of joking, really, I know when I went to my first like entrepreneur conference, I was working at the time, I was working for a family practice, and we get so much CME, and I didn't even tell them that I was going. I was, I'm in Vegas at a conference, and, you know, they think I'm like, you know, board certification course or something like that. But it was, you know, an internet business conference of all things. But I didn't tell them.
Yeah.
What about your friends? Did you like keep it quiet, or did you?
Yeah, so interesting. So during those months, I was telling people, you know, like, wow, they're like, how are you doing? What are you doing? Can we help you? Can we, you know, everyone wants to help when you're down and out. And so I was like, listen, I'm listening to these podcasts. I would like screenshot eventually when I could use my hands and send it to my mom and my family, my sister, my best friends from med school who are still my best friends. And everyone's like, what? I'm like, no, really? You genuinely have to listen. It'll really change things. Whenever they would complain to me or have a story. And so people just weren't having it though. So then I was like,
was it weird, or what was the?
Yeah, I just think they didn't, that's just not something they know or care about. They don't think it's within their sphere of things to consider, right? So then I was just kind of on my own, and then like a handful of months in, like I had, you know, ordered these packages that would come once a month, and my husband would be like, here come those $297 packages again. Here's your $297 book. Could you stop with this? I'm like, no, I'm not stopping. and then when I told them, because I went to the American Academy of Family Physicians inaugural physician wellness conference the week before I went to the life coach school. So it was the AAFP. I was there with my best friends, these same best friends. And I'm like, and there were coaches there, like on the main stage. Like family physician coaches who worked with chief residents. And I was like, oh, this isn't crazy. Like, this is a real legit medical conference. And so I talked to the people who were doing it, who were inspirational. And some of them are like, you know, sort of well-known or leaders in that space. And I told my friends, and one of them had started listening to Katrina, one of the friends who was there. And I was like, I'm going to go do this next week. And they're like, what are you talking about? So they're like, are you going to do a podcast like Katrina? I'm like, I don't know. I'm going to go get trained and I'm going to figure it out. And I actually, interestingly, interviewed to be the Dean of Student Affairs while I was there. And it was on Zoom. And I was like, this is such a weird life moment for me, right? Like, am I going to be the Dean of Student Affairs? Am I going to be a life coach? Can I be both? I don't think so. How is fate going to do it? Like, what's going to happen? And then when I came back, you know, I had made that decision. And so like, when was I going to come out all summer? So I'm like, well, and I kept sort of like delaying, you know, like, well, I have to get my LLC. I have to get my disclosures. I have to like, I can't make my website until this. I can't this, but I had a timeline and it was ticking because I was going to run out of time to get people to pay to go to this thing. They need time off work. They have to get plane tickets. So I had to talk to my university. I had to get permission from the university. I had to like start having conversations with people. It almost felt like secret conversations and be like, do you know anybody who runs a business here? You know, because there's like voluntary faculty, adjunct faculty, regular faculty, tenure faculty. So it's like a little exploration. Where do you fit in? What's going to happen? Who can you tell? So I got approval. I got all my legal stuff in order. And then my husband's like, you got to post on Facebook. And I was like, hell no. No, I'm not telling anyone on Facebook what I'm doing. Like people I went to high school with, you know, like random family members, like, I'm not doing that. And he said to me, if you're not willing to put this on Facebook, you're never going to succeed. I was like, I can't, babe. Like, you don't understand. I can't. Like, I'm a figure at the university. I can't. The deans, my supervisors, are my friends. I consider them friends, but they're my friends on Facebook. There's no way I'm gonna, like, what are they gonna think? You know, I was so worried about what other people thought. Like, literally, what are they gonna think? And so then I was like, I know, I'll make a post and hide this post from some people. You know how you can do that? It's like, this is the secrecy level, like when you're first coming out as a physician entrepreneur, right? Who do I need to hide this from? And then he's like, you're being ridiculous. And he's so wise. Like, someone who's outside of it sometimes has a lot more insight. Sometimes, not always, but sometimes has a lot more insight. So then I just went ahead and did it. And interestingly, and then I just had to go like full speed ahead. Okay, Facebook ads and this and that and the other, you know, I'm like, okay, it's Facebook ads. What's a Facebook ad? And so like, I remember it was Del Mar races. You're from San Diego, so you know the Del Mar races in the summer. Yep. And they're like a really big thing. And my family's very big into the races. My dad has been for decades, his whole life. And so I left home and I was like, okay, click, Facebook ads, you know, beautiful pictures of Bora Bora. Someone's got to click. Here we go. Goodbye. And I went to the Del Mar racetrack. It was opening day. And I was like, oh my God, it's working. It's like magic when you talked about gratitude, right? Like the fact that there's an internet and everyone has a cell phone in their pocket and that I can just pay to get it. Like, I don't have to go on the news. Do you know what I mean? I don't have to like do something in a magazine. I don't need to go talk. Like, I'm just literally sitting there like in my jammies, click, click, click. I'll see if this works. And within minutes, I had like, not minutes, hours over the course of the day, but like, you know, hundreds of physicians who'd clicked on my link. And I was like, and I was doing it all myself. Like, it totally B- work. Like, it's not beautiful, but it worked. It's just the presence and the functionality that matters. So, so then I would Google them. You know, it would be like blah, blah with this email address opted in because she wants more information about Bora Bora, because I was nervous. I was like, what if they're crazy people? You know, like, what if they're not doctors? What if they're stalkers? Yes. And so I would Google them and I'd be like, oh my God, she's an obstetrician. And I'd be, oh my God, she's a neurosurgeon. Like, oh my God, she's a, like, every emergency doctors. And you can click and see where in the world they are. And I was just like, this is crazy. I mean, those moments where a physician entrepreneur goes into online business, it's mind blowing that what they teach at these things, like at the Life Coach School as an example, but Amy Portfield, Stu McLaren, you know, James Wedmore, whoever you're following, if you do it, it actually works. It's crazy. So anyway, that was sort of the coming out. And then as time went on, like I'd tell more and more people, you know, and people would sort of find out. And then my students started finding out and listening to the podcast. I'm like, this is
I was wondering what.
Yeah, this is not for you. This is for like it was for my peers, because then my mom would start calling me, and then of course my mom's listening. Every entrepreneur probably that has a podcast probably has their mom listening and their dad. And she's like, why don't you do one for the med students? And I'm like, well, mind your own business. She won't. I don't know if she'll find out. Mom, I love you if you listen to this one. But I do my med students as like my day job. And so this is for people more at my level. It's like, and so what I find, you probably find this too, is that people who are like you are attracted to you, right? They're like, they see themselves in you. You become their example of something. And so I tend to bring 40-something-year-old women because that's who I am. And so I'm kind of speaking to people who are my peers, mostly have kids, mostly are kind of totally overwhelmed, mostly thought they would be happy, light at the end of the tunnel. Like it's a total arrival fallacy. We get here, we're just working our asses off. And I was working my ass off, and I still work my ass off more than I should. That's my plan for this summer, actually, is to stop working my ass off. So we'll see if I can do that.
I love that story, and it reminds me of when I talked to my mom, and I got on the phone. I said, "Hi, Mom." You know, she says, "I'm mad at you." I said, "What? You didn't accept my invitation on LinkedIn." Mom, my mom is like 81. Okay, and I don't even know why she's on LinkedIn.
At 81.
Yeah. But she's stalking me on LinkedIn, and you know.
Oh my God, that's so funny. My mom tried to get into Empowering Women Physicians Facebook group. I was like, "You are not a woman physician, Mom. You cannot come in. Like that's the only screening criteria. You cannot come in." And then my dad, he says he'll listen to my podcast like at the pool. He'll sit there and relax. And so he was actually like, I think, featured. There was some kind of thing about Michael Jordan recently. I don't know why, something about Chicago. And
yeah, there is a documentary that came out.
Yeah. So my dad used to play for Chicago. He played hockey. And so he was in it recently. Like there's a clip of him in there. And so some of his old hockey folks reached out to him and were like, "Gary, we saw you. And like, what's your deal? What's going on?" And so he's like, "Oh, I'm here in San Diego, and I have my son and my daughter, and then there's 3 of us. And then my daughter, Sunny, has a podcast. You should listen." He accidentally forwarded this to me. He's like, "It's kind of boring. It's but you can tell how nice she is. She's so nice. So I just listen anyway." So if you're not a doctor, it's probably not your thing. But
well, it's great to have supporting parents. Yeah. I want to get back though to what you said. You were so worried about like what your faculty members would say.
Oh my God.
Did you get any pushback from that when it happened?
Yeah. So yes, absolutely. Yes. Yes. At the beginning, it was okay. People just thought it was weird. It was like a little secret weird thing.
Yeah.
And then it's been growing and it's been successful. And the contract that you have with the university says, because they want to know if you're even having like a real estate business, or if you're having like a cookie baking business or a gardening business, or because their issue is it going to distract your time and attention from your main focus, which is your university job. I mean, you could argue that about becoming a parent, or about having an ill family member, or about like, it's like what I do on my hours that you're not paying me for is, I think, sort of mostly my business, as long as I'm doing it in a way that you've already approved, right? And I met over and over, even after a long period of time, with the conflicts of interest people, like the head people of all these things. But yeah, their people did start to get more concerned. And there would be murmurs behind the scenes, and there would be words to my face as well. Yeah.
You still survived. And what I've always told, with my audience is just be upfront.
Because yes. Oh, yes.
The last thing that you want to have happen, for example, for mine, I was working in my group, but I had started a software company on the side. And I didn't want, and it got successful, and I didn't want them to like take credit for it or sue me or say that I was using computer time to do it, which I wasn't.
Right, right.
So you want to have that document in place that's saying whatever you're doing. And of course, there are certain organizations, for example, the Kaisers of the world, where you're not allowed to do anything at all.
Mm-hmm.
So you just want to make sure that's up front.
Oh, that's the first step. Like, because in the summit that we were just in, people are like, I don't know, should I ask my work? Like, what? I'm like, listen, here are your first steps. Find out the rules. Find out the rules. Do they own your intellectual property? Are you allowed to do this? What space are you allowed to do it in? Only in the clinical realm or only not in the clinical realm? Or because every organization has some kind of policy. Yeah. That's your first step, is go find it. Just ask around, just go find it. And once you know it, then you can see if anything needs to be done, if you need to write it up, if you need to ask for exceptions, if you have your own contract, right? Is it just a new paragraph or addendum in your contract? Or is it like where I am, there's a like a committee, who does this. So yeah, you got to be upfront, and then you got to get a lawyer, depending on what you're doing, right? And get your LLC. Like, you're a physician, and your brain and your sort of physicianhood needs to be protected, and your income and your assets. And I will mention that it's totally unrelated to this entrepreneur stuff, but I happened to be sued for $25 million due to a minor car accident during the time I was becoming, and it didn't end up settling for anything like that. But during the time I was becoming an entrepreneur, but it made me very aware that, like, because the paperwork would say, and clearly it's just because there was no reason for any of this except possibly that I was a doctor, right? It was like anything you've ever earned and anything you will ever earn. That's what they write up if they're suing you. Anything you might ever earn in your life. Yeah. Wow. So that's why I think it's important for physicians to consult with an expert, with a lawyer who works with physicians who are entrepreneurs, and like get your ducks in a row and then get going. Yeah. Well,
not to make light of it, and I'm sure that was an extraordinary experience you win. It's nice to know that you've got a $25 million waiting for you at some point, right? It's coming in.
No, that did not. I mean, it ended up settling from much less within the insurance company.
Right.
She was suing me. It wasn't me suing her.
Right. Well, they're saying that you would have made $25 million. Yeah. Doing whatever you're doing. So.
Yeah, exactly. Apparently, they think I'm worth $25 million. Yeah. I'm not yet, to anybody who's interested. But notice how I say yet. That's very coaching.
Yes, that's right.
Yet.
Think big, dream big, right? Yeah. I want to focus on physician coaching. Now, I know you coach, right, currently, and you also certify physician coaches, right? You have a program?
I actually don't.
Oh, you don't? Okay.
It's interesting because here's my thought about that. Where I trained is outstanding, like amazing. So why would I bother? I mean, I just have, I'll be like, go do that. And if you want to work with me and you want to work for me, or you want to be involved, go get your outstanding training and come back. It's like, any healthcare organization, well, Kaiser just did this, but most of them don't start a medical school. They're just like, say you're Sharp, or say you're whatever. You're just, you have that, but you leave the training to someone else. And so I really, really strongly feel that the training that we had was very good. And so people go there, and then I just run a group. Like, I'm just like a community builder. Like, at my university, my literal title is community director. I got outstanding community leader award. And like, I just build community. It's like something that's important to me. I like it. I like interacting with people. I think human connection is kind of what life is really all about, right? Is human connection. And so when I first went to the life coach school and I saw 3 physicians, I was like, oh my God, I am so validated. You're so my people. So I was like, let's get us together. And then I found out there was more. And then there was more. One went to UCSD the year before me. She graduated in medical school. But now there's 56 of us, no, plus Katrina, so 57 who are certified currently. There's another 25 or so in training that I know of. So that's going to be around 100 of us. And I have groups for us, Facebook groups, and we lift each other up, support each other. And when people have questions about, do I use my home address? Do I need a PO box? Do I, how do you get your first clients? What do you do when they have this assignment? What do you do about your work? Like, I think it's important because it's so unique for physicians to be entrepreneurs in this space. And then they're like, isn't it counseling? Or is it like, prescribing? What if you're a psychiatrist and you're a coach? How do you define the boundary? So I feel like we're stronger together. So anyway, so I don't train them, but I do congregate them and build community with them and offer them in a program to other physicians as coaches. Yeah.
So why, and I know this, but as an XY, what challenges do women physicians have, maybe more than male physicians, or why is that it seems to hit a nerve?
That's a really good point. So yeah, all physicians, half of us are burned out and in distress, and many are suicidal. Like, that's just a given. Is it worse for certain groups? Yes. Is it worse for minorities? Yes. Is it worse, like suicidality in women physicians is worse than for men? Women work, first of all, the first few months of the year completely for free, right? Because our salary is not the same. Like, don't even get me started talking about my salary. I'll be on a rant for longer than this podcast. And that's one thing that's valuable about me being an entrepreneur is I finally define my salary.
Right.
Nobody else gets to keep telling me no, right? So there's the salary issue is annoying. There's all these societal expectations. Like, you're going to be the awesome mom at home and you're going to be the awesome doctor. But if you have to leave at 5, like for instance, I worked with a student for 4 years. Actually, this student ended up, it's so weird the way the world is. He ended up recently resuscitating my brother when he was in the hospital and had bilateral pulmonary emboli. It was like an incredible, incredible moment where it was like full circle, right? That someone that I had trained saved my family member. And he, you know what he said? I'm totally doing a quick sidetrack. He said in that moment, he said to my dad, he stopped before he, did what he had to do. He stopped and he said, I just want to tell you, your daughter trained me well. Your son's going to be okay.
Oh, wow.
And then he hugged me and I was like, oh my God. Okay. But we were telling a story that was irrelevant to that. So the XY, the woman part. So, okay. I hope he never listens to this, but even if he does, it's fine. So, I teach my students often for 4 years. And I do course evals, I do program evals, I do all this stuff, and I say, we do the written ones and I do the verbal ones. So I'm like, what did we do well? What did I do well? And what could I do better? And what did you do well? And what could you do better? And he was like, well, I mean, honestly, my experience is like, you always have to leave at like 5 or 5:30 to pick up your kid from school. And that's so annoying. It affects my education. I'm like, my kid's school closes at 6. So, but I'm like, I'm judged. And even and like, again, lovely, amazing students. And I have many students who've said the same thing. Many women physicians get judged for having to leave at 5 or 5:30. And then when we get to the daycare or the preschool or the school or aftercare, not only were we judged for leaving work and we left our charts undone, right? And our emails and stuff that are going to need to be done later. We go to the preschool and our kid is the last one. So it's like we're disappointing people everywhere. So then you go home, you make the lunch, the dinner, whatever you're doing. And usually we're the ones responsible for more of the household chores, right? And then we do all that stuff and then we get the kid to bed and then we're supposed to hang out with the husband, say you're married. But you're like, I actually have a lot of charts to do right now. So I feel like this is true for all physicians, but particularly for women, it's like, there's never a moment for yourself. There's these societal studies where women truly don't get 10 minutes in a day, 10 minutes. Whereas like the dudes, and this is a total generalization because different families are different, right? And some dads are stay-at-home dads, but like dudes can often, if they do observations in society for studies, like they get to sit and watch TV. Like, I'm like, I literally don't know the last time I watched TV. Like, it's just not like downtime. What is that? And so we don't get leadership positions in the same way. We have to have twice as many publications or achievement. And this is an objective thing for the high level positions. You have to have twice as much to get the position as a woman than if you were a man. So, and then people think you're, I won't swear on your podcast, but just like if you're a man, you'd be bossy. If you're a woman, you're other things.
You're a bitch.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a good leader if you're a man. and
just as in
you're,
business too, right? So
yeah. So there's,
business
and there's just
medicine.
there's a lot of microaggressions. And again, it's significantly worse for people of other demographics, of
Yeah.
course. But the microaggressions against women, it's constant, it's ever present, and you're never good enough no matter where you go. You're never good enough as a doctor because you're distracted with other things. You're never good enough as a mom because you'll never be there for the 10 a.m. like thing that they announced tomorrow. Oh, we're having like cookie and cupcake thing. You're like, what the hell? I have patience. So it's just kind of like, and then it's like, what about me? Isn't this, you're always serving others, serving the patients, serving the students, serving the kid, serving the husband. Like the only thing we do often to serve ourselves is sleep. And we don't even do that enough. So it's like, what about us? So that's why we're kind of like that pause that I had that was like, oh, wow, people can get by without me. Like I could literally die off the face of the earth forever and they would keep going and be fine. So knowing that, why am I choosing? Because then when you start to see that, you're like, why am I choosing this life? And people always feel like they're not choosing this life. And my coach that I'm working with, every week, every Monday, and when I start to complain about something or I'm like struggling, whatever, she's like, why are you choosing this? I'm like, I'm not choosing it. She's like, but then I'm like, I know what you're doing. Right? Like I am choosing it.
Right.
Because I can change it. Whatever it is, I have choices. Even when I feel like there's no choices.
So even coaches need coaches, right?
Oh, I would not hire a coach that doesn't have a coach. I think you have to put your money where your mouth is. It's like going to an attending who doesn't go to the doctor or hasn't been to medical school or hasn't, like, what, you can't, it just doesn't make sense. My job is to manage my mind. If I don't believe in the power of coaching enough to pay for it myself and pay much more than my clients pay me, what am I doing? I'm a fraud. I need to manage my mind so that A, I can have a good life, the life that I want, and create the results of my dreams. And B, so that people say that I really do believe genuinely in this work. And so of the people in the summit, I mean, many of them have spent, I'll just say, a lot of money, like 6 figures on coaching, right? Like,
I have easily spent over 6 figures in coaching.
yeah. See, that's what I'm saying. People think it's crazy, but it's like, once you go from doctor land to entrepreneur land or to business world, like the business people, they have coaches. This is just a thing. We know that helps you excel. It helps you identify your limiting beliefs and it helps you get over them, reframe them, get over them, get past them, keep going. So yeah, I mean, because people are like, they'll freak out like, oh my God, it's $5,000. And I'm just like, listen, like if they're going to take a real estate course, for instance, that's like $2,000 and they're like, oh my God, it's $2,000. It's so much. I'm like, listen, if you don't have $2,000 for a real estate course, you're never going to buy real estate.
Right.
Real estate is hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I feel like it's the same for entrepreneurs. If you don't have a handful of thousands of dollars to invest in your mindset, I can't even tell you the number of examples. Like, I mean, I probably shouldn't talk about income on your podcast, but like, when you believe you can do it, you just do it. Right. You know what I mean? You keep going till it happens. Like you set a goal and you fall down and you're in the mud and people are yelling at you and hating on you and what are you doing? Why are you doing it that way? You suck. And you're like, you gotta keep going and find the way. You find the way. The way is there. You just don't know it yet. You keep going till you find it. So
I always say, if they're not hating, then you're not trying.
I know. Man, yeah, I even recently, because I'm so used to people loving me, which is so interesting, right? Like I'm like, I literally have a picture that a student gave me of me on a candle as a savior, like as a like Mother Teresa type figure or mother or whatever. Like, so my coach recently has kind of brought that up to me. She's like, what are you doing with this savior mentality? Like not white savior, but just like, people, because a coach needs to believe, and it's true, and I do believe this, that people are whole. People have everything they need to succeed already inside them. They don't need to be fixed. They're perfect. So you have to let them stand on their own 2 feet. And so, but anyway, this whole like, I run a free clinic. So people are like, oh, she's so amazing. She runs a free clinic. She's so nice. She like da da da. And then you come into the entrepreneur space, and all of a sudden, people start throwing tomatoes. It's interesting. I mean, there's both. And if you don't have some haters, it's just a numbers game. You're just not big enough. You don't have a big enough audience if you don't have haters.
Oh yeah. I mean, when I was in business, I would say, they found out this doctor, and 99% is positive, and then 1% was like, oh, he probably wasn't cut out to be a doctor. That's why he started his own business or something like that. And
yeah, he probably was sued for malpractice and was reported to the medical board, and
right, exactly.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is, in our world, we were just talking about it, how there's much more awareness about this and coaching, but in the grand scheme of things, going down the street to hang out at the hospital, nobody knows anything about it. Or they'll say, my favorite thing they always say is, why do you need a coach? You can find everything on YouTube or the internet.
Totally.
It's like, I'd rather find people who've already had success doing that. Like you're saying, oh, just do an LLC.
Mm-hmm.
And here's the other secret here. Not everything on the internet is true.
That is true. Like, it's so true. If you could find something from a source that is reliable, that has been there and done that, I think in the physician entrepreneur space, find an entrepreneur who is successful, who has done exactly what you want to do. Take advice from them. Do not take advice from Joe Schmo next to you on the EHR, because he doesn't know how to be successful. He has fears and limiting beliefs, and he'll be like, what about this? What about that? So you don't have to go with one person, but you can find with 5 people or whatever. Like, yeah, you need to find people who have been there and done that. Yes, you can Google it. Yes, absolutely. It's like a good idea to like get in some kind of program or something. And the coaching like just takes it to another level, because you're so in it, you can't see that what you think, because there's the whole thing about like, just because you think it doesn't mean it's true, right? Because we have all kinds of thoughts that aren't true and that we don't act on. Like, say you're really mad at someone and you're like, oh, I could just hit you right now. You're like thinking that in your brain, right? But like you know that you're not actually going to physically hit that person. You just think it. It's just not true. And so we have all these thoughts about our businesses. It's going to fail. The people are going to talk, whatever. And you have to have somebody who be like, why are you saying that? Because if they spend enough time with enough people who don't believe that, and they have evidence that it's not true, then they're just like, that's just a story. Why are you telling yourself that story? It's not a very useful story. Let's tell a different narrative, right? Like, maybe sky's the limit. Maybe you can make $1 million this year. Maybe you can make $10 million over time. But even if it's not just money, maybe you can change lives. Maybe you can impact people on your own without going through a system. Maybe you can, whatever it is that their dream, because that's what I find is everyone has their own dream, and I could never imagine what it is. And often if you know a physician and they come to you and they have like a passion project or entrepreneurial idea, it's like, you would never know, because in their day jobs, we're all just so used to like white coat, type, or operate if you operate, whatever you do, that like, you don't even let that part of you come out at all. So we don't know what those things are. But the more I do this work, the more I find we have so much more in common than different. We all have human brains that have evolved over time with certain patterns. It's very based in neuroscience, all this stuff. And neuroplasticity is real. And so you just ask, what are your dreams? And then you find out what's holding them back from that. And it's always themselves, right? And so everyone has a different dream, but what's your dream? Like, it could be you want to make a diaper company. It could be you want to, like, it could be whatever. And then you just say, well, okay, you really want to do it? Let's do it. And if not, why not? Because you don't have to. Like, you don't have to do physician entrepreneurship, but it's fun. That's the thing, is like, the whole point of this is it's supposed to be fun. Is it going to be hard sometimes? Yeah, life's 50-50, right? It's going to be good, it's going to be bad. Without right, there's no left. Without up, there's no down. So without the drama of physician entrepreneurship, there's not going to be the joy. But it is actually, I am astounded by the magic of it. It's really like one of the most magical things of the universe to me, is that no one ever taught me in school. Like, how did I end up in a bike accident and a podcast told me it?
Right.
So weird. Like, I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad 20 years ago.
Uh-huh.
But like, I didn't believe it would be for me, you
Right.
know, until I saw, and again, why did I think I could do it? Not only the podcast, but I had a doctor example for me. That really helped
That's
me,
right.
not just a random example, not just some person, but a doctor. So I think if people, it's good if they're listening to your podcast, they have doctor examples. And so you do, me and Peter and like Latin, Kenji, Bonnie, we say and you know, these sayings are like, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. We really
Yep.
think that. And so we are like, we have this little text thread that'll probably be embarrassed that I say this, but like, it's called the Power Group. I don't know who named it, but there's like 100 texts on it every day. But like, we're always cheering each other on. What are you doing? How's it going? And then like the struggle, it's not false. When there's struggle, we say, you know, but if they're the people that I text the most and stay in touch with the most, then I become the average of those people. And I see that happening for me. And all of my best friends who I adore and love, and I still want to be a group of 5 people that I spend the most time with. There's 4 of us actually, but we're all academic, primary care, family doctors in underserved medicine who do education. It's like a totally living in a bubble, and I love them and I love my bubble. But I also, so for your listeners, right, like whoever your bubble is, whether you work at Sharp or Kaiser or Scripps or wherever you work or private practice, those are your people. So you're going to become more and more like those people. And if that's okay with you, that's totally fine. Otherwise, start exposing yourself to some other people and have real conversations in real life. Start with the podcast, start with the input, but then like go and talk and do and interact, because who you surround yourself with matters.